The final exodus. 10 plagues had fallen. Pharaoh had relented. The whole nation of Israel, a vast, terrified river of humanity, marched out of Egypt, not as slaves, but as a rescued people. They carried their dough, their gold, and the bones of Joseph. Freedom was finally within their grasp. They marched by day under a pillar of cloud. By night, a pillar of fire led the way. The pillar was the one visible, tangible proof that this whole impossible venture was sanctioned by God. They followed the divine GPS straight into a corner. God spoke to Moses, "Go to the edge of the sea, set up camp, wait." The command for an army facing pursuit is always retreat. God commanded them to stop. Pharaoh changed his mind. He sent the mightiest military force on earth, 600 of the best chariots, horses, and warriors, thundering out of the dust, coming to reclaim his property. The sound was a low, rising note of pure dread. It was the sound of their past catching up. The people looked back, dust and death. They looked forward, a wall of blue, endless water. They were trapped. They turned on Moses, the leader who had promised freedom, the man who had delivered them to their grave. Were there no graves in Egypt? They cried. Was it better to serve Pharaoh than to die here? Their fear was immediate. Their faith was exhausted. The sight of the enemy dissolved the memory of the miracle. Moses turned to God. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He cried out, and the command came back. Not a defense, not a plan, just a verdict on their position. Tell the people to go forward. Forward? Into the ocean? Into the impossible. The whole multitude, 1,000,000 souls, stood paralyzed on the sand. Then the miracle of positioning began. The pillar of cloud that had led the way moved. It settled behind them, between the camp of Israel and the pursuing army of Egypt. Darkness, a profound, blinding darkness, fell on the Egyptians. Light, a protective, clear light, shone for Israel. The chasm between the past and the future was established. Moses lifted his hand over the sea. The water did not part instantly. It did not vanish. It required effort. A strong east wind began to blow, a constant, violent hurricane of air that did not cease all night long. Slowly, painfully, the seabed was exposed. The water divided into two towering solid walls. A highway appeared, but it was a highway of mud, wet sand, and terrifying peril. The command came again, "Tell the people to go forward." They walked through the seabed. 1,000,000 people, their flocks, their carts, their terror, all walking on dry ground between walls of suspended cold water. Every step was a decision. Every moment was a choice between the immediate evidence of their eyes and the quiet promise of the dry path. The Egyptians followed. Blinded by the cloud, their generalship failed them. Their chariot wheels grew heavy and stuck in the churning mud of the seabed. The water that held back for faith became a swamp for their malice. At the break of dawn, the last Israelite was safe. Free, on the other shore, Moses lifted his hand again. The walls collapsed. The water returned to its full, furious, deafening depth. Pharaoh's entire army was drowned. The test was over. The sea was their salvation and their enemy's grave. But let's slow down. Let's stand with the people in the middle of the night, in the middle of the sea. Imagine the deafening sound of the approaching chariots, the death march from behind, the low guttural roar of the walls of water on both sides. Think of the sound of the wind, a wind so powerful it pushed an ocean all night long. Would you take the second step? Would you trust that the water wouldn't simply come crashing down? Would you choose the water over the sword? The whole night was a test of faith in the dark. It wasn't about the power of the miracle. It was about the motion of belief. God performed the impossible, but he demanded their action. He asked them to walk. They were told to go forward, but there was no forward to be seen until they were already in the process of leaving. just the impossible. This was a complete psychological dismantling of slavery. Slaves obey the master, the free choose faith. They were walking away from the tyranny they knew and into a terror they didn't. They had to choose motion over paralysis. They had to choose the terrifying, dark path of faith over the immediate, certain dread of the approaching army. The Red Sea was not just a geographic feature. It was a threshold of identity. They entered as former slaves and emerged as a covenant people.
Don't pray for the ocean to disappear. Pray for the strength to walk through the bottom of it. The wind does the work. You just provide the footsteps. The mud is always heaviest right before the breakthrough. You are no longer defined by what chases you. You are defined by the direction you are called to walk.